Excellent. All right, so here we are today with Natalie Day, who's joining us for another artist interview for the Art Fluency group. So Natalie, really good to meet you. we've just been having a bit of a chat about what we're going to talk about, just kind of getting some subject matter and stuff like that. And it feels like I'm hoping it's going to be a really interesting conversation. It feels like it's going to be, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah. So we said we'd start with a bit of an introduction. So over to you. Do you want to introduce yourself for the purposes of the recording and the group, and then we can kind of start talking about what we said we were going to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Lynn. So hi everybody. So I'm Natalie, and I'm based down in North Cornwall, Bude, right on the coast, which is lovely. It's been a bit of a coming home for me because I grew up down here and then I moved away and then spent the rest of my adult life trying to get back. So to actually have done that last year was amazing, and the next key step in my artist journey, which we're going to be talking about at some point later as well. So I'm a natural world artist, is what I call myself, because my subject is the natural world, the landscape, but also because I try and use natural materials as much as possible. So I gather a lot of my pigment from soils that I then process to make into paint for my artwork. So I try and keep a really physical and tangible connection to the landscape that I am making art about, which I really love. It's kind of, for me, it feels a really strong connection to the work, and you get lovely textures as well, which are always a great bonus because I don't process them fully, so they are left a little bit coarse, so you get these lovely mixtures in quality of paint. So my work is definitely going along that line at the moment, and it's an avenue I've been pursuing for about 2 coming up 3 years now, so it's really starting to head off in some interesting directions, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing more about this idea about using pigment. Fascinating, that idea. I just made a little note to come back to it so I don't forget. I mean, I think we were talking a little bit, weren't we, about how we both ended up as artists. You know, and I think for both of us, this has been a kind of coming back around to something, you know, as you get older. And I just wondered if we kind of talk a little bit about your bit more about your history, actually, and how you find art again.
So I was very much an arty kid, always drawing, loved it, would just be sitting down with my grandmother mostly, who was an artist, so spending many hours immersed in drawing. Always assumed as a kid that I would be an artist when I was older. I went to do foundation year at Falmouth School of Art and Design, as it was then, now Falmouth University.
Wow, okay.
And I started applying for fine art. So you were
really serious about it at that point then?
I was, yeah. And the fact that I even got into Falmouth, I didn't get the best A-level art. In fact, I got a D, so I'm amazed they even took me. So I got into Falmouth, did my foundation year, started applying for degrees, but I really had my heart set on Winchester. But I didn't get into Winchester, and the ones I got offers for, the courses just weren't quite right for me. So I decided to wait for a year and reapply. And of course, then life took over. I was 19, a friend of mine had just moved up to London. She was nannying, and she said, "Oh, there's a family down the road, they're looking for a nanny. Do you want to come up to London?" And that was it. I moved away from Cornwall and then spent the next 27 years trying to get back. So, I've been on a bit of a journey. 8 years in corporate London, then 3 redundancies later, I trained as a massage therapist, which ultimately led me into my most recent profession, which was as a chiropractor. And yes, I've put that on pause now. Now I'm back in Cornwall. I didn't come back to Cornwall to be a chiropractor. I came back to Cornwall to be an artist. So yeah, I've put the chiropractic on hold, and time to step into the role I was supposed to do.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that journey? I mean, I think, you know, I kind of hear this from quite a lot of people, you know, who have early experiences of art where, you know, they feel really connected to it. It feels really important. You know, it's something very significant. And then, you know, for all sorts of different reasons, they end up not pursuing it, you know, and end up with, you know, I guess for some, particularly women, I guess sometimes they, you know, they're starting families, and you know, that's a huge commitment that will take most people away from, you know, anything like this for quite some considerable time. But you know, that's not the same case for everybody, you know, and sometimes it's about work, isn't it, or jobs, or needing to earn money, or I mean, I think in my case, you know, I similarly was I found art actually almost by accident when I was at school, because I was because I was one of those kids who kind of got encouraged to do extra subjects and extra exams and stuff like that. And I had a friend who was very arty, and she used to go to the pottery room, the ceramics room, and I would just go and hang out with her there. And I just started messing around with some stuff and got really interested. Got really interested in it. And the teacher then said, well, do you want to do an O-level in it, like you do? And I thought, oh, I could do that. That sounds interesting. So I did an O-level and then an A-level. In fact, I ended up doing 2 A-levels, bizarrely, both in art. But then I just kind of left it for a really long time, But I think for me, it was the thought that I could even possibly be an artist wasn't even in my frame, my frame of reference. It was almost like people like me didn't get to do things like that. It wasn't for me, because I either wasn't good enough, or other people had those kind of lives where they got to do those kind of exciting and interesting things. My life was going to be about doing some kind of job that I didn't really enjoy, and working really hard. Just interesting, I think, how we can come back round and circle back round to things years later and refine them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, at 19, I realised how competitive the art world was. And I knew that I would have to be really committed to it to even stand a chance. And I think at that point, I felt as well that I probably wasn't good enough, that I didn't have what it took to actually pursue that profession. And it suddenly then becomes a lot of barriers. I think once you start to get your confidence knocked a bit, it's easy then to get distracted going off doing other things. And I came back to art about late 2007, 2008, and rented a studio. I decided that I left it for long enough, rented a studio, took up an oil painting evening class, and I was painting and selling for about a year. And then I tried to change my style. I tried to go a bit more mainstream, because I was quite esoteric spiritual at the time. So I tried to go a bit more mainstream and blocked myself. And then I couldn't go back to what I had been painting. So packed everything up, and that was it. It went away for another 10 years. So it was quite daunting coming back to it again at the age of 43 or something, when I first started getting my paintbrushes out again. And I think for the first few weeks, literally, I just unpacked things slowly and just went and sat in that space and just reminding myself what it felt like. My easel smelt of oil, because that's what I'd used previously. So just sitting with that lovely smell of oil paints and remembering what it felt like. It was really therapeutic to actually just allow myself the time to do that, because of course then when the first time came that I picked up a paintbrush again, I just expected I was going to fall into it how I'd been 10 years earlier. And I thought that was a big shock, because I was like, no. And that was really frustrating. That was really frustrating. So I had to have several talks with myself that, totally unrealistic expectations, and just be gentle and ease back into it and start at the beginning. And actually, that's when I came across Nick Wilson's course and did CVP. And that reminded me of
Did we do it in the same year? Because I did it in 2017.
I did it 2018 and 19, repeated it.
Okay. So the years after me then. I'm pretty sure it's 2017 when I did it. Yes, it was. Yeah, it was 2017 when I did it. Oh, that's interesting.
And it was a good course, and it just reminded me of a lot of the stuff, but there was also quite a lot in there that I'd never really learned because I hadn't gone on and done the degree level. So I think that started to give me the confidence again to start experimenting. And I'd say probably after about a year of using the CVP principles to make my work, I then started to break away and then actually ignore them.
Well, I think it's like anything we learn, isn't it? Like that, there's going to be good stuff in it, and it can be really helpful, and it will take you so far. But then I think often it's about, I guess, finding your voice, isn't it? Finding your authentic voice is that you break free of that and start to make your own judgments about how you want to do things. I think. I think I had a similar experience with CVP actually. For probably about a year and a half. I was kind of applying those principles. Then I started to think, actually, I kind of caught myself doing something. I think it was putting a dot, do you know what I mean, opposite a thing. And thinking, I just kind of had this moment of thinking, this is formulaic. I don't like this. I don't like painting in this way. And that kind of, I think, just helped me break through and start to think more like, well, what actually do I want to do? Like,
how can I break the rules?
These ideas of differences being the ultimate is all very well, but and I think Nick is very strongly design led, understandably with his background, and clearly that works really well for his work. And I kind of went, and this is not working for me. I wanted to do, I just wanted to push out of that. So it's interesting we had a similar experience with that.
Yeah, and I think my first rebellion against that was
with it. Where did you go next with it, Natalie? What did you sort of find yourself doing?
Well, I think my rebellion was that I wanted to do hard horizon lines, and I wanted them to go off the edges of the canvas. None of this kind of like, leading me back in again. I just wanted to do blunt, solid lines, and my Horizon series was that kind of rebellion breakaway. Because I was just doing very sharp, taped off, contrasting horizon lines, and I love that. For me, that was just the big move away from it to actually get me confident with doing something that wasn't formulaic, that was a bit more bold, that actually I want a hard line and I want your eye to go off the page. So you'll find your way back in again. But it was, for me, that was the series that turned things around.
So as you describe that, I mean, I'm hearing that as a kind of a really strong personal kind of artistic expression, like your sensibility kind of rising up and going, no, this is what I want to do. It's great when those moments happen, isn't it? And you can feel it in yourself. Yeah, it is. And then Horizons led on to the Division series, which again was lots of hard lines, lots of hard edges, but with really soft layers. They were very soft, sensitive bits, but also very hard edge bits. Are those paintings on your website?
Yeah, they're all on the website. Yeah. If you look on the categories.
I'll just pull that up then, so we can show people. So which category did you say that they would be under?
So Horizons have got a few of the first.
Got you. Yeah, Horizons, found it. Let me just share screen then with this, and then people can see what we're referring to. There we go. Yeah. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Lovely. I see what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean about kind of really kind of straight lines, as you say, going right off the edge of the painting. Yeah.
And then some of the bigger ones, just having that line going right across. So yes, those back in suddenly and 6. They were definitely transition pieces for me, that whole collection. Yeah, my rebellion.
Lovely. So they're quite big, aren't they? Yes, what is that, a metre by metre, this one? Wave what? Yeah. It looks like it is in that space. Brilliant.
Yeah, that was my first going a bit bigger as well. So a metre by metre and 80 by a metre. Started to get more excited about painting big and moving away from the small sort of 30 by 30.
And the other one you were talking about was Divisions, wasn't it? Which is this one, is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, more hard edges.
Yeah.
And I realised people like them, because actually most of those I sold, people like that hard edge.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah. These are lovely.
It's nice looking back at these, because they were so pivotal and so vital to my practice.
Yeah.
And that's something I would definitely say to anyone that's watching this, is don't be afraid to try something. Just because it doesn't fit the convention or you've been told you shouldn't do that, just try it anyway. As a very good tutor of mine once said, learn how to do it and then do the opposite. Learn the proper way, and then do the opposite and see what happens, because it's the only way you're going to challenge your practice and you're going to make new discoveries. And that's the fun of it. It keeps things fresh. Yeah,
kind of developing and pushing out of, isn't it? I guess the parameters of what people say, makes a good painting, really.
Yeah.
Always an interesting one, I think. Okay, so what happened next? How did your work develop then? Because I mean, the pigment thing sounds really interesting. I mean, when did that start to kind of crop up?
The pigment thing came off the back of a conversation I had during a tutorial down at Lin School of Art when I was doing this studio practice year. Lovely lady, Maggie O'Brien, she was telling me about her son who used to go down and collect pigments at Metallic, and all these beautiful oxidized in the ores, beautiful reds.
Of course, because it was a mining side, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tin and the copper ore. And that very next morning, I actually got up early and I went over to Metallic and I gathered some samples, and that was it. I was absolutely hooked. And now I try and source all of my paint from the locations that I am working on. If you start looking at the colours in the soils, it is absolutely mind-blowing. You can go, there's a stretch at Heartland just up the coast here, and you can be walking along the path and it's going from beautiful red ochres to yellow ochres and then the chocolate browns. It's all under our feet, and until you start actually looking, you just never realise. So yeah, it's definitely something that's really fascinating me, and the beautiful greys and even purpley colours that you can get as well, depending on where you are. So yeah, that whole the range of colours really started to get my attention, and some of the ones I picked up from the mining spoils have been, you know, almost like gold in colour. Really, really beautiful, vibrant ones. And in fact, that picture, Sacred Landscapes, the big stone circle that I mentioned when we were chatting before, the yellow in that was actually picked up one of the time.
Just see, so that one was in, let's just go back.
That one is in Home Place.
There. Oh wow, yeah. So that yellow.
That yellow was actually picked up on the moors.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
What's the process that you have to go through then to be able to use it actually as, you know, as paint on? This is on canvas or on paper?
That's on paper. So it depends how much you want to process it. There are very sort of conventional ways to process it, but I also know people that literally just mix it up with water and paint it directly on, or they might mix it up with a bit of PVA glue and paint it. So it depends how far you want to take it, really.
They're quite literally PVA with soil in it.
Yeah, and because I'm trying to move away from the plastics, I use gum arabic, which is a non-plastic based adhesive. So I actually mix mine up with gum arabic and water. So they are very eco-friendly. You know, they are literally made from natural products. So I actually take them out on site sometimes, and I don't mind painting in the landscape. And if things drip off onto the soil, it doesn't matter because there's nothing harmful in there. So yeah, there are some amazing colours in the landscape. I would definitely urge everyone to go out and start looking, just noticing, you know, and if you want to then start colour matching them with whatever medium you use, you'll be fascinated just at the range that you can get from what's around you.
Because as you're talking, I'm thinking about having seen, you know, the colour of the soil and the cliffs, you know, in and around the area in Cornwall, and there's some incredibly deep, rich burnished reds, aren't there, that are, you know, really dark, and then also, you know, some clay soil actually, which is a kind of really sticky yellow colour. And if I look out the window here, it's actually fairly nondescript brown, but I bet if I was to get closer to it, you know, like you're saying, you know, there's some really interesting colours in it.
Yeah, where I just moved down from up in Oxfordshire, we were close to the Ridgeway, which is an ancient road, and it goes over these chalky hills, and I picked up a little bit of chalk from the hills and ground that down, and that made the most beautiful white. But also from a field just off that, I picked up some of the very clayey soil, and it made an amazing Payne's grey. So yeah, you really just have to start looking. The variety is phenomenal. Yeah.
Really interesting. So I mean, what's that meant for the work itself as well? I think I can see that, you know, in terms of the materials you're using, fascinating, but I'm also wondering what the relationship is between that, then the use of these natural materials, and the subject matter, really, you know, how they're connected for you, if they're connected, I guess.
They are, yeah. So the Botanic series was obviously based around Botanic and the old mines.
And that was just pull that up actually, so people can see that, because that's it's an astonishing piece of work. That
was quite a pivotal one.
So I'll just share
also
screen again so people can see. Where we go, just lost you.
I discovered the artist Peter Lanyon at that point as well, who was a Cornish abstract painter from the 50s and 60s, and he adopted this idea of using multi-viewpoints. So these are very much exploring the idea of looking down, looking up, looking through, looking across, really mixing up a familiar landscape and putting it into a composition that you would recognise certain elements, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to say that's exactly where it is.
Yeah.
So I think these do resonate with people because of that they recognise familiar things in them, but they're not entirely sure where it is because they don't look like a literal landscape, but they are all taking elements from it. And yeah, most of this series was where I was introducing natural pigments alongside acrylics.
Okay.
So the colours are a bit more varied because obviously they've got acrylics in them as well.
Yeah.
And then I started moving away from that into just the natural pigments and not the acrylics. But these are 4 meters-ish long on paper rolls. So they're going to be coming down to the museum show with me, and hopefully we'll be able to get them up somewhere.
Mm. They are lovely, aren't they? So that's preliminary sketch 2. 1.
They were very educational pieces for me working in that format and at that scale.
Yeah. What did you think? How did that? Sorry, say that again. In what respects? Like, you said educational. Kind of what was the? I would imagine there was a hell of a lot of learning actually from working in this way, and I'm just kind of curious about what you found really.
So first of all, I realised that I really love working in that thin panoramic letterbox style. Really love it. It's almost like a storytelling. You start at one end and you go across the other end. And I also love the fact that it's really easy to abstract in that format as well. Funnily enough, I used to paint square and rectangular a lot, but since I started doing these elongated ones, I'm finding that other format really hard now. So yeah, for me, I think it really challenged my ideas of what a painting was, in terms of it can be long and thin and not have to be very linear. You can drop verticals in it and you can have a lot of interest without it just being a long, thin panoramic landscape.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still an exploration that I am pushing, and I would, when I can get a bigger studio space, I will be making much bigger versions of those.
Yeah, because this is a finished version, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is on a number. It's on 6 different panels, isn't it? And you're sort of saying in the information about it that they can be rearranged. You've kind of put it in this orientation, but actually people can move them around if they choose to. Yeah,
they can be hung in different configurations. They all should work as standalone paintings. So yeah, I wanted it to be kind of a fun piece that could be mixed around according to the space, and even just change it up if you want something different to look at. Yeah, that was 5.4 meters long. That was good fun.
Yeah,
I had to paint that in 2 sections though, because my studio wall wasn't long.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing. Really exciting piece. Really exciting. Yeah,
it was fabulous to see that up in the gallery. That was I did that for the end of year show on the studio practice course, so it went down in the PZ gallery in Penzance, and just to see it up in a gallery space was amazing. Yeah,
I bet.
Absolutely.
I bet. Yeah. Okay, so I'll stop sharing. So so where next and what next? Because I've heard you sort of say you've got big solo show. When exactly is that, Natalie?
So I've got a big show in the Royal Cornwall Museum down in Truro in Cornwall, which opens on the 4th of April, and it's going to run for 3 months. So it's the main county museum, and they're obviously very interested in local Cornish history. They've got a fantastic geology collection. So I've actually been down there and we've been selecting some rocks to put up in the exhibition, because a lot of the colours that I take for my paintings that are not necessarily immediately visible, I know are underground. So the amazing blues that seep through, the oxidized and just the minerals. Sorry, I've got a bit noisy there. The minerals that seep through the rocks, they just make these amazing blues and pinks. So to have those geology specimens up in the exhibition hall alongside the paintings, I think are really going to help put the work into context. So it's a range of new work. A lot of it is quite experimental. It's all pursuing the idea of natural materials as much as possible. But what I am also doing is reintroducing some acrylic mediums. It's been a bit of a conflict for me, because Obviously, I stopped using them because of the whole microplastics down the sink issue.
Yeah.
But my subject matter is all about the material culture and the human building remnants that have been left and abandoned on the moors, particularly in my case, around the mining country in West Cornwall, but also the moors, Bodmin Moor in particular. So actually, I had to kind of make my peace with the fact that putting acrylics onto the natural materials, it does actually tie in with the themes of the work, because it's about our imprint in the natural world. And I really, I'm really fascinated by what's been left, what's been built and then left. So whether that's the ancient stone circles and structures, whether that's industry. Obviously, we've got a lot of mining ruins down in Cornwall, but there's also an incredible old airfield that was built for World War II that they put, they built runways, they built the concrete plane parking pans, and it's all now just been left and abandoned. And when you look at the satellite imagery on Google Earth, the patterns are just phenomenal. I mean, it's just something you would never know is there unless you see it from the air. And so it's this kind of push and pull between the natural world and humankind's, I'm not going to say destruction of it, but the fact that
impact on it.
It's our impact. We leave stuff, we leave stuff that is never going to disappear. And so it took me a while to actually relate that to the using acrylics again, but it's working really well. I'm quite excited with what's happening in the work as a result of that. So
how many pieces are going to be in the show?
There's going to be quite a few. It's a huge space. There's about 50 odd meters of wall space. So a lot of the work is quite big. So some of the bigger pieces that you showed earlier are going to be going down, and some new work I'm making, which is just under 3 meters long. I've got half a dozen pieces which are new, which are nearly finished. I've got to get a wiggle on, finish them. But I'm going to deliver all the work, and then the curators down there are going to select and hang it. So I'm going to totally leave it to their discretion which pieces, because they know the space, they know what's going to work well with the flow of the room, and I have total trust that they're going to hang it well. So
brilliant. So, I mean, do you, in terms of workshops, do you do anything online? Because some of my audience are from the USA and Canada. So if there's anything like that you are running, they might be interested in signing up at some point. So do you do online sessions at all, Natalie?
I'm moving into it.
Okay.
Again,
okay. So not yet.
Not yet. What I am doing at the moment is I'm doing an online live class with the St Ives School of Painting in a couple of weeks. So that one is available to buy and attend live, or you can buy the recording of it and do it at your own pace. So that's going to be my way of abstracting landscapes. So it's a really nice introduction into my processes. Then I am in the process of filming a cyanotype, experimental cyanotypes class, which that's something I use because it's natural compounds, gives really good blues. So I actually paint with cyanotype. So I'm putting together an online course, which is going to be an introduction to that. And then from there, I'm not quite sure, but if anybody's interested and they want to know more and just be kept in the loop, then by all means they can contact me and I can make sure they get the details. So thank you for that.
Okay, no problem. So is there anything else we're going to talk about? We've talked about the pigments, we've talked about the larger work, we've talked about moving to Cornwall, we've talked about refinding art, haven't we, both of us, really, at a later stage in life. I'm just thinking if there's anything else we were going to say. I can't remember that there was there? Was that it?
I think I think it was about just the journey, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, the journeys are exactly that. They are always a step forward on the path. And I think it's been really important for me to be open to new ideas and new opportunities, because the minute you start getting really kind of caught up in something, you block so much. And when you start opening yourself up to new possibilities and new ways of working and just new ideas generally, it's amazing what can happen, the shift in the energy when you do that. So that's been really significant for me, is not getting too hung up on what I'm trying to achieve, but actually having a rough idea, but being totally open to what happens along the way. And as we know as artists, quite often those sort of accidental things that we do on our canvas turn out to be
Yeah,
amazing. That you know,
yeah,
we couldn't have done them intentionally if we'd actually tried. So
yeah, that's always an interesting
yeah,
moment, isn't it? I think one of the things I have kind of caught as well in what you're talking about is it seems to me like you have had quite a strong focus on working with different people, actually, you know, kind of going out there and finding people to work with that you know, who can, I don't know, provide that stimulation, I guess, to do the thing that you're just talking about, which is to not get stuck in, you know, a particular mindset or thinking that this is how the work needs to be and just staying in that rut. Yeah, I mean, I think I also think that that's quite an important aspect, actually, of being an artist, is to be engaged with, to always be looking, I guess, for, like, you know, who is there, who's out there at the moment, who else is there, what else that is there, you know, that I can learn, you know, where else can I go to find out, you know, about something, or even broader than that, actually. Maybe it's also about, like, how do I give myself new experiences that are going to filter through into the work in some way or another, you know, so that it's not so that we're always bringing, always bringing a new self into the work, you know, so that the work becomes new, if that makes sort of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, getting out to gallery shows and museums, trying to see original work of artists that you are inspired by. I'm fortunate enough that I can go to the Tates and Ives and I can go and admire Peter Lanyon's work, you know, to actually see them in the flesh, and Joan Mitchell's work is down there. To actually be able to see the work that you are heavily drawn to in the flesh is very valuable. I think the biggest takeaway for me of that was that I'd be so caught up in, you know, everything has to be pristine, the finish has to be perfect, the canvas has to be immaculate, and yet you go and see some of these phenomenally famous paintings, and they're so
not, are they?
They're not. The edges are really bad. They're stretched really badly. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. So I've had to get over myself a bit with that. It's like, it doesn't all have to be neat and pristine. And of course, you know, for me, that doesn't fit with my subject matter anyway. I'm not painting.
Oh, it really doesn't, does it? I mean, it really doesn't.
No, it really doesn't. So, you know, if my canvases that I'm stretching are a little bit off, it actually doesn't matter. It's not about perfection. So yeah, definitely see as much original art as you can. Never be afraid to reach out to artists that you follow as well. You know, just have a little bit of confidence to reach out to somebody on Instagram and just say, look, I really love your work. You know, I just approach them. I have done that with quite a few artists that I admire, and they've all come back really lovely responses. Some of them I've then gone on to, you know, have more involvement with. So never be afraid to reach out to artists that you follow and whose processes and work you are interested in. And also collaborations are really good fun. I spent a year doing an amazing collaboration with Ron Jones, and we were doing mini residences in Cornwall and Wales, and we produced a lovely show's worth of work that we exhibited up in the Cotswolds, and it was just the most fun year working alongside someone else. We were doing joint pieces where we were working on them, starting out in the landscape, both drawing them, and then we'd split them up. We'd take them back to our studios in Oxford at the time, and her and Wales, and then we'd come back together and we'd work into some of them a bit more, and that was brilliant. That really helped me to, again, expand my horizons and get comfortable working outside and working with someone else. And the collaborative drawing thing is just so much fun because you're drawing over each other's work. So you just kind of like, you know, you can't get attached to it. And when you see the way
that's a good lesson, isn't it, actually? A non-attachment, a useful lesson in non-attachment.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that's coming through in the teaching I'm doing with St Ives School, is that letting go of that attachment to have to produce a perfect thing or a finished painting. You know, you can just do experimental sketches, you can just do rough paintings. Not everything has to be a finished piece of artwork. And it, you know, there is no wrong. It's just however you feel about it. If you really hate it, fine, put it down, come back to it in a few months' time and do something different with it. You know, there's never anything that needs to be thrown away. It can always be
repurposed or reused. I've got some, talking about on the subject of that, I've got some old canvases from when I used to do representational oil painting. And I was looking at them recently thinking, right, these need to be reused somehow because they're not going anywhere. And I'm not going to chuck them away because that doesn't feel okay. So I think where I've got to so far is that I might take the canvas off actually and reuse the stretch bars, you know, and just put some fresh canvas on, you know, because with them being oil paint, they're being oil paint and also varnished. I just thought actually trying to do anything over the top is going to be really complicated and really difficult. So, you know, maybe I can kind of, you know, just take the canvas off and reuse them. So it's an option.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
I used to have a massive massive pile of shame with all the pieces of work that I considered failures, but you know, I was like, oh, what am I going to do with these? And then once I sort of learnt this thing about actually you can always come back to things and change them. The only work now that I have in my studio is either finished and ready to go out or it's in progress. There's no pile of shame anymore. It's all got a purpose. And if it hasn't got a purpose right now, it's in the box ready to be used later. So yeah, I think just, you know, always think there is a way to deal with
something that I can do with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We repurpose somehow. Yeah, I must admit, I mean, I do quite a lot of sort of doodling and mucking about on bits of paper. You know, and those often just kind of get kept in a pile, you know, and say, you know, torn up for bits of collage, can be used for this, that, and the other. You know, they, like you say, they can definitely find a home somewhere or be used in somewhere or another, which is, or, you know, become a jumping off point, don't they, for something else? You know, there might be something, you know, in a page that's like this size, there might be just a bit there where there's a couple of colours and a line and a mark against each other that become really interesting. And that in itself can be something that gives you, you know, a route into something else. And you can always pop those pieces down and have them as little individual artworks. I had a whole series of preliminary things that I'd done, and I was practicing processes and how I could simplify my process. And so I would have pieces that had had certain layers applied to them, but had, in my opinion, gone wrong. They didn't look good. So I did some monoprinting over the top of them, and it's just brilliant because you've got this really interesting background then with this monoprint on the top of it, and suddenly oh wow, I couldn't have actually done that intentionally because I needed those layers underneath that weren't working to be able to make it. So it's always worth absolutely just try something new, push the boundaries. And the thing is, if you think it's ruined anyway, if you feel it's beyond salvation, what have you got to lose? You know, go and do something different with it, tear it up, collage it, paint over the top, print on it, whatever. Absolutely.
It's where some of the best discoveries happen.
Pardon?
It's where some of the best discoveries happen.
Yeah, it can do actually, kind of. But I think there's something in that process where, because you're not invested in the outcome, and I think, you know, that experience of non-investment feels to me like it's an important, a really useful mindset to try and capture, actually, you know, as an artist, and that finding that place is really useful. It's really,
it can be transformational. That detachment from it is it takes so much pressure off. Oh my goodness, the pressure we put ourselves under. Just remove it, you know, just do yourself a favor and remove it, because pressure kills creativity. We know that the minute you put pressure on something, forget it. So absolutely, remove that attachment to an outcome and just have fun. That's my new mantra. Is just, you know what, it's just go for it. If I want to do something, just try it. Just try it. And if it doesn't work out, try something else.
Well, certainly from, you know, the work that I've seen, it's definitely working for you.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely working. Very exciting.
Well, it would be lovely to see everything in the museum. You know, having it in a public building is a really exciting project for me because it was on my big goals list. So I can't wait to see it in situ.
Fantastic. Okay, well, thank you very much, Natalie. I will stop our recording. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. It's been great. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, lovely to chat to you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, cheers.